Hi, my name is Levi.
And my name is Patrick.
And this channel is called Levi and Patrick Went to the Movies, where we discuss a movie that we love every week, every Tuesday. So please like, comment, and subscribe, ring the notification bell, because someday soon we will be talking about a movie that you love.
And that might be today, because today we're talking about one of the best movies.
M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. Okay, before we get into any of the kind of controversial stuff, I would like to talk about one of the best scenes of any movie ever made. And that sounds like a bold statement to make, but I actually believe it. I'm confident. And it is when the creatures, those we don't speak of, first attack the village. Joaquin Phoenix is running around, the music is kicking in, and everyone's panicking, trying to get inside, and the sister is like, "Don't let them in!" And you hear the scratching at the door, and Bryce Dallas Howard's character, what's her name again? Ivy is like standing at the door, and she's like, "He's out there, he's gonna come for us." And she holds up her hands, and the drums are like, doosh, doosh, and then the sound goes out, the creature comes up, gets real close, and he grabs her hand. This gorgeous music kicks in, wide shot of them whipping around, her skirt flips, and then there's just a slow motion shot of them running with a close-up of the hands, and then he goes down and then shuts the top. And it is so incredible on its own, but also the context has been building up, where she talks about how she can see his color even though she's blind. He never holds her hand. I mean, he used to, but he doesn't now because he loves her. And so all of these kind of emotional backstory bits culminate in the middle of the first attack of the creatures, and it is just incredible. And that scene is a good representation of the movie as a whole, because it is more of a love story set in a creepy telling than it is just a straight up horror movie. One of the kind of defenses for audiences' reaction to the movie is that the marketing was awful. And so a lot of people were led to believe that this was like a creature feature that was going to be really intense, which is just not the case. And I know that argument can seem simple sometimes, like, "Oh, it was bad previews, but the movie's great."
There's hundreds and hundreds of comments on Reddit where everybody was like, "Yeah, that's what ruined it for me, I was misled in the first place." And the stigma about M. Night Shyamalan in the first place, where like, "Oh, it's going to have a big twist." And even telling somebody there is a twist is ruining the twist, because then you're waiting for it anyway.
The trailers, if you actually go back and watch them, are 100% a different movie. There's like a girl whispering rules about the creatures with like slashes of red through these rules that aren't even in the movie. And then when the title comes up, it's like The Village, and there's a sound effect of like, it's like the words seem to ooze appear, and it's not even the movie. They talk about, the bad color, and they talk about, we have borders on the woods with the creatures, but it is not the movie in the trailers. And so it's a genuine point that if you go back and watch, you'll be like, "Oh, okay." You had mentioned the twist at the end, and that's another criticism levied against the movie, is that, M. Night Shyamalan always has to have a twist. And so it's kind of, the movie is then put into this box of almost manufactured. Like the story wasn't told in the way that it best could be told. It was told in a way with that twist at the end. And that's not the movie.
It's honestly, it's more like a reveal of the secret than it is like a twist.
Right. I was talking to one of my other friends about this recently, and we were talking about the difference between a twist, a turn, and a reveal. Mm-hmm. And a twist is something like The Sixth Sense, spoilers, where you find out Bruce Willis is dead, and it recontextualizes the entire movie. It changes the whole story. And now The Village has little clues leading up to the fact that there's something weird about this town. And Joaquin Phoenix is like, there's secrets in every corner of this village, and all the elders have boxes, and there's always everything's just a little off. So then when you find out, yes, it is a big kind of change of the story in the sense of everything is different. But the movie, all of the events that happened are still the same. Mm-hmm. It hasn't recontextualized the story, just the setting. And so, it is more of a reveal, kind of a conclusion of all of these clues have led to this, and this is the secret. And another criticism that I've heard several times is that he tried to do too many twists, with the creatures aren't real, and then Noah is a creature, and then, it's modern day. And the first 2 points, again, I feel like are more turns of the story. Like you're following it along, and then suddenly, the creatures aren't real. And you're like, whoa, okay. But then Ivy is in the woods, and a creature shows up. So now you've turned again, where you're like, oh, maybe there is something going on here. and then it turns out it's not a creature, it's Noah. And so all of the things about who has been killing the animals and whatever, you now find out all that information, and it's Noah. And then she gets out, and then it's modern day, and so then you find out all the secrets about the elders. And so they're just turns of the story in an exciting way.
The things that the whole movie's been leading up to. Who's been doing this to the animals, etc. And then, what are the secrets that are kept in every corner of the village? Both of those are revealed at the end, and we know the truth about it all. And then that's it.
I will admit that the ending could raise a lot of questions if you were to think about it. But they do a good job of kind of catch-all explaining it away, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a private preserve by like some rich billionaire guy.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, I think a lot of people think that they're out in the woods and they're like park rangers who don't know they're there. And no, these are specialized hired people to ensure no one goes in the reserve. It's not like they just work at Yellowstone and they got placed here.
They even have it's a no-fly zone.
Right.
Nobody's allowed to fly over it. And that got out several years ago and caused a big hullabaloo or something, whatever he says.
Hullabaloo. You do not want a hullabaloo on you. But yeah, so, I mean, and then you could make the argument about, you know, what if there was a helicopter that came over for some reason and got lost, or I don't know. Someone might spill the beans.
Oh, yeah, that's possible. But that's why they paid lots of money to make sure that that didn't happen.
Yeah, and what's cool too is the end when Ivy, she climbs over the fence and she meets the guy, the park ranger, whoever. Kevin. It has this cool feeling to that scene where we've been seeing it entirely from the villagers' perspective of what this all is, and then you find out the secret. And then at the end it switches and you kind of see it from an outsider's perspective. And here's this girl dressed old-timey. She's blind. I don't think he knows that, but she's blind and she's talking very old-fashioned, and she suddenly becomes this like almost fairy tale character of just this woman out of the woods. And she even says that great line. He's like, "Where do you come from?" And she said, "The woods." And it's a different type of feeling about the villagers right at the end. And I think it's really cool. And that's where a lot of questions people have too come up, where it's Ivy is blind. It's like, how does she make it through the woods? How did they know that
she has a stick?
Find her?
She gets a new stick, you know.
Yeah, people were supposed to guide her to the road, but
yes,
you know.
Well, no, they were supposed to stay at that path while she went all the way.
Right, they were supposed to guide her to that road and then wait there. And then she went. Agree with it or not, there is a line where one of the elders says, "How could you send her? She's blind." And then her father says, "She is more capable than most in this village." So it's like, at least they acknowledged it. From like a technical standpoint, the movie is incredible. The cinematography is Roger Deakins, who has done all kinds of crazy awesome movies, and I'm pretty sure he was nominated for this one. I didn't double check. The music won the best Oscar for musical score because it's just incredible music.
It is incredible music. I listen to it.
Yes.
Quite often.
Say what you will about M. Night Shyamalan, but he knows how to capture certain moods for scenes. This movie is full of shots that are far away, and they zoom in slowly on.
Mm-hmm. Or away from.
Right.
You know.
There are a lot of conversations where the camera is behind the actors, and they're talking away from you, and so you're getting reactions of other characters. I think that's a cool choice.
Yeah, and there's some where there's different characters, things going on, and then the character comes into frame, and then you follow them for a second, where it's like you're watching what's going on before you're pulled into what is actually going on.
Yeah. And it makes each scene just dynamic and interesting.
Man, there are so many good shots. The opening we have emulated before. Just all the awesome creepy shots of trees
with
the dead branches.
Yeah, opening titles. The opening titles of the movie are overlaid with shots looking up at trees. Mm-hmm. And when we were younger, we were making this movie called The Grove. And that was all we filmed a few scenes, but we filmed the opening and edited it, and it was literally the same type of shots and the same music.
Except we had way more shots, and we filmed it out in the winter, so I mean, it was different.
Yeah.
But
but even the music kicked in when it said the road. The same thing says the village.
Yeah.
That movie never got made.
No, it didn't.
Talking about gorgeous shots. An actual challenge I have for you, if you put this movie in, is at any moment pause it, and that picture will be an incredible picture. Like it could be not just a poster, but just something you frame. Every shot.
And credits. Alright, so besides all of the beauty that we've talked about, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit more, don't worry, we're not done. This movie is so tight. It's so well written and well put together. A lot of things in writing, fiction, and whatnot, I'm sure it's also true with film. Probably. The end of the movie, or book, sorry, is always in the beginning. So like, when you're writing a draft of anything, you get to the end, you know what the end's going to be. You put details about the end in the beginning of it, and it makes it all feel inevitable. So it opens, opening credits notwithstanding, it opens on the character Daniel Nicholson burying his son. So it opens on a sad note, right? 7-year-old son, we see the headstone. A little of an off-screen voiceover of the next shot is William Hurt standing there talking to them all at dinner, and he's, "Did we make the right decision to settle here?" That's his line. And so, toward the end of the movie, when he's talking to them all about the fact that he sent Ivy off into the woods, where it's like, the reason they settled here is because they were running away from violence, from sadness, you know? And he's like, even Daniel Nicholson in that conversation at the end says, "My brother or whoever died in the towns, the rest of my family died here. Sorrow is a part of life now, we know that." And so the movie opens on that character burying his son, and then William Hurt saying, "Did we make the right decision to settle here?" So the whole movie, it's all very deliberate for multiple reasons at the beginning. And then even at that, in that opening scene of them all eating, is when they hear this monster sounds coming from the woods, and then Noah's like, you know, because he knows. He knows it's not real. He knows there's somebody out there just making noises, and he thinks it's fun. He's having a blast. There's this big secret that nobody knows, but he does. And so it's all there. It's all in the beginning.
Yes, there are a lot of clues throughout.
Oh, God. All over. And the movie's so tight. Honestly, it feels really fast. We were talking that, like, Joaquin Phoenix gets stabbed about halfway through. To me, it feels a lot longer than it really is. But also, while you're in it, it's like, oh my, it is moving really fast. I don't know, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's only like an hour and 42 minutes long.
Yeah, but there's so much in it because it is so tight. I mean, I think it's, after the opening where they're eating, there's like the quick little montage of like them sweeping and burying the bad color. And then the next actual scene is where the children are all standing around the dead animal and William Hurt comes up. So we have the action going on already, because then immediately they have where they're talking about what happened. I love that line when the shot far away, the kids are all standing there in a circle and William Hurt comes walking up and he's like, "What manner of spectacle is this that's captured your attention so wonderfully? I should put it in my pocket to help me teach." Freeze. Pause. That they're all staring at something, and the shot is far away. It's far away from them. They're all small on the screen, and we don't know, like, what are they staring at, but we can kind of hear the sound of flies before we see the shot of the skinned little animal. It's just so well done, because it's like, it's a funny line. He's a very charismatic person, and then all of a sudden something's wrong, and then we see the thing that's wrong, and it's horrifying. So just the turns that you go through so quickly, it's so well done.
You had talked about Joaquin Phoenix getting stabbed halfway through the movie, and that is such an incredible choice because he is the lead character for the first hour, and then he gets stabbed, and there's still 40 minutes left of this movie. And also, what's interesting is, even though Ivy becomes the lead character in the second half, she's not in the movie for the first 10 minutes or so. In fact, you meet her sister first. And so then you think, well, not that you think that she's the main character, but then the first time you see Ivy, she's singing to her sister who is upset because she's been rebuffed by Joaquin Phoenix. And it's just, you see the side of her face, and it pans out behind her. You don't even know she's blind at that point.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
That's interesting. She's been blind as long as I can ever remember. That's funny. I wonder when we realize that she is.
Well, the next scene is her sitting on the porch.
She grabs her stick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Starts walking, and then...
I just never thought a point in the movie where we didn't know that. I love William Hurt. He's such a good actor. So in that dialogue with the kids, also a lot of the dialogue is really funny. A lot of this movie is really funny in like a very subtle way. When Judy Greer comes up to him and she's like, "I'm in love," and so she's talking about him and he's like, "Where's the young man? Where's the boy in all of this?" You know, like don't tell anybody else that you're in love with him until he knows you're in love with him. I don't remember what the line is verbatim, but it's just so funny. It's so good.
And I love right after that, she then goes and has this whole monologue to Joaquin Phoenix about love, and we should shout it from the rooftops. Hard cut, she's sobbing in bed, just wailing, because it was just a shot of Joaquin Phoenix staring at her, not saying anything.
Yeah. Because his face barely moves, but then there's one point where he's listening to her and his eyebrow just like lowers a little bit. Yeah, he's a funny character too in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was advertised as a horror film, but it's really a comedy.
Another line that I find incredibly humorous. Oh no, I was going to say... Okay, two things. Well, when Judy Greer's talking to him, I quote this all the time, is like, "I love you like the day is long." And I've always thought of that where it's like, it depends on the time of year. Like sometimes, not a whole lot.
Yeah. Sometimes you get an extra hour of love. And other times
it's taken away from you.
Yeah.
Bryce Dallas Howard is following Noah out racing to the resting rock, and then Joaquin Phoenix is there. And she's like, "I see people's colors. Sometimes it's just a haze. Do you want to know what your color is?" She's like, "Well, it's very unladylike to talk to such things. You shouldn't have asked," because he's just silent. He never says anything. And the way she says it is so funny because, well, obviously he didn't ask, but B, he wasn't going to. And she knows that she's the one that talks all the time and he's the one that's quiet. And she's toying with that openly, flirting with him right there.
Yeah, I also love that scene when she sits down. I think one of the first things he says to her is, "You run like a boy." And then she says, "Thank you." Now, speaking of quotes, there's one that I use as a joke for different scenarios. And it's the great scene where they're talking about getting married.
Yep.
And she's like, "Are you going to dance with me on our wedding night?" And then he gives this whole monologue, which we'll talk about. It was really nice. But at the end he says, "And yes, I will dance with you on our wedding night." And so that line and the way it's said, I use a lot in real life. Where it's like, "And yes, I will go to work later today." You know, just... And then the quote is when Joaquin Phoenix, Ivy tells him that people don't do things they want to do because they don't want the person to know that they want to do it. And then he says it later and messes it up. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of a version I'll say where it's like, people don't want things to do. And
Before that scene, I believe, is Joaquin Phoenix going to the elders and saying, with his little note, that he wants to go to the towns to get medicine, you know, after the death of little Daniel Nicholson. Joaquin Phoenix goes to give his little request to go to the towns to get medicine. Then there's a scene with Ivy chasing Noah, and they go and meet Joaquin Phoenix at the resting rock with that dialogue I just spoke of. And then Noah laughs, goes off, comes back, and puts a toad in her hand. And she, funny. And then he puts red berries in her hand. And I know that we've seen the little red flowers get buried by the girls sweeping on the porch, but we don't yet know that red is a bad color. We don't know why they buried those little red flowers, and it was a strange moment, right? So that's when Joaquin Phoenix says, "Careful, you are holding the bad color." The music changes, the tone changes, because it's been lighthearted and fun. She's having a race with Noah. Noah was hitting somebody with a stick, and she was like, "We don't hit." Brings him to the quiet room, where she's like, "If you promise not to hit, you won't have to go sit in the quiet room," which is important because Noah's apparently in there all the time. That's where the suit is in the end that he steals and gets out of because he was put in the quiet room toward the end for killing Joaquin Phoenix anyway. But yeah, my point is that the movie is so tight, right? And so it's funny and lighthearted up until that point where he's like, "You're holding the bad color." And then, "Where did you get this? The berries?" Well, he goes and shows them, and it's like, immediately, Joaquin Phoenix is pitching to the elders again for the second time that he wants to go to the towns. Noah, because the creatures see him as an innocent, was not harmed when he went over the creature's boundary to get those berries, right? So if they didn't harm Noah, maybe they won't harm him. And that's just I just think it's so wonderful that that's boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, how the movie's
and
lined
then
up.
right after that, he goes into the woods, and then right after that is when they attack.
When Joaquin Phoenix is standing there, and then he goes over the boundary into the creature's territory, and the music is like, oh, you know, as he's walking up, and then we see the berry bush, all the red, you know, so the use of color is very important. Every time we see red, it's like, we know it's the bad color. Anyway, very well shot. Anyway. So when he goes in there to go grab those berries, a creature sees him, but he also sees the creature. Now, we don't fully see the creature, but you can see something moving in the corner of the screen. You can see somebody step off screen as the camera's like moving and following them. You see part of them step off screen as the bush moves that they like brush past. There's absolutely no way that he didn't fully see the creature. So, was that creature Noah?
No.
No, it was one of the elders.
Yes.
Yes.
Because that's why they attack the town and do the signs on the door.
Correct. So, the creature attacks the town and marks everybody's door because the elders are trying to enforce this thing that they've set up for like 30 years that now is being threatened primarily by Joaquin Phoenix, but also by Noah, which they found out through Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, it's interesting because they're like, we need to stop Joaquin Phoenix from leaving. So let's attack the town. Let's do this thing that'll put the fear of God in him. He'll stay in the town.
Mm-hmm.
Then he gets stabbed. That problem was solved. But instead, they're like... Instead, they're like, no, let's bring him back to life by having him go to the towns because they will continue this place. They're like the smart leaders, right? But it's just funny to think that at the end, the whole realization is, when Noah dies, it will keep this town safe. Like, he has given us a reason to continue this place. But in reality, if you kill off the curious ones, they're not murderers, obviously, but it's like Joaquin Phoenix is going to go out, see the world, and he gets stabbed, and they're like... Because when they bring him back to life, he's just going to be more emboldened to go, because he's going to be like,
It's true.
See,
it saved my
medicine
life.
saved me,
Yeah.
I can save other
We should
people.
go more often.
Yeah.
Anytime anyone gets sick, we're going to send somebody out there, and they're not going to be blind.
Yeah, it's Saturday. Let's go to town. Let's go to town.
Yeah, Kevin's going to have his hands full. Like a little door that I have to stop climbing.
Oh, speaking of Kevin, in the end, back in the day, this movie came out in 2004. The Rotten Tomatoes forums were the place to be for movie discussion.
That's right.
Yeah. And I remember this movie was originally called The Woods.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
It was originally called The Woods. They changed the title to The Village.
Really?
You don't question me. And there was someone who said that their cousin or whoever worked on the movie and they were in charge of props, and one of the shoot days had a walkie-talkie prop. And so they were like, the twist is that it's modern day. And so it wasn't confirmed, obviously, but before I even saw the movie, I had that in my head. So when I was watching the movie, when it happened, the reveal, it was kind of not really a surprise because I anticipated it. Or at least I was aware of the fact that could be it.
Wow, that sucks. See, that's what you get when you go look for spoilers.
I didn't look, it found me.
You read things about the movie before you saw it. That's a spoiler. And yes, I know, I used to do that too. I would sit there and study trailers and look for all the clues and try to know the whole movie months ahead of time.
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore.
But I think that also maybe that's why I didn't have any of that there has to be a twist vibe. Whereas other people, they didn't know if there was a twist or not, but they were expecting a twist, and then it happened, and they're like, oh, okay. Whereas I just knew that the end was probably wildly different.
That's valid.
You know?
That's a good point. That's an alright point.
Which is an argument for any other spoiler that I would not use.
When Joaquin Phoenix goes into the woods to look at the berries and then sees the creature walk away from him, obviously for the sake of the film, but in that world you'd think that the elder dressed up as the creature would have made a noise and walked toward him menacingly instead of it just saw him and then walked away from him like it didn't care.
Well, I think he was probably caught off guard.
The elder?
Yeah. I bet the elder was just watching, and then Joaquin Phoenix walked up, and then they saw each other, and it was probably more of just and then turned and got out of there. Because it could have been any of them. It was probably...
Doing their routine.
Yeah, it could have been one of the older ladies. Could have been one of the older meek men. And it's like, they probably never had to actually...
Run into anyone.
Yeah. And also, who's to say that Joaquin Phoenix wouldn't have, like, stood his ground? What would they have done?
They have claws this long.
Yeah, but they're not gonna, like, scratch his face.
He wasn't about to start standing his ground in front of them. He
literally stops, looks over, and watches the creature, and then when the creature leaves, that's when he slowly turns around and walks away. So if he was standing there just looking at it, and they started walking towards him, and he didn't move to show that he's not afraid, the creature gets up, and then what? You know?
He wasn't standing his ground. He was caught off guard, and as soon as the creature, he like turns and walks and gets out of there.
My point is, they clearly locked eyes, and Joaquin Phoenix didn't turn and run. He waited and stood there, and then the creature leaves, and that's when Joaquin Phoenix slowly turns away and walks away. The creature is gone. So, again, my point being is, if whoever was dressed up as a creature, maybe it was an old lady, decided to approach him, and Joaquin Phoenix didn't move, then that elder would be faced with the decision of...
Yes, I agree with you completely. My point is that your if is purely only a big if because it would never have happened. He wasn't standing his ground. He was frozen in fear.
I am answering your question, which was, why didn't the elder charge menacingly? And that's because Joaquin Phoenix is literally staring at them, not moving. I'm not saying that Joaquin Phoenix then, like, slowly pulled out a knife. I'm just saying he's clearly not afraid. So if you were that elder, and you charged, and Joaquin Phoenix didn't move, what would you have done? You're making it sound like that they actually have creature powers, and that they, one, were actually going to hurt him, and two...
No, I'm not. That's not my point. My point is, he was not standing his ground. He was frozen in fear.
Right.
Big difference.
Okay.
That's my only point.
But it's irrelevant, because the idea being is, if they approached him and he was still standing in fear and didn't move, what then would the elder do when he got right up to his face?
Yeah, exactly. You have a valid point. I'm not denying that.
That's all the point I'm making.
No. My point is not about your hypothetical. My point is about the movie itself. If they would have come at him menacingly, and he would have turned and run, because these creatures have long claws, they're going to kill me. He wouldn't have stood his ground. He was very, very afraid.
Okay. In the movie, Joaquin Phoenix sees a creature in broad daylight for the first time and gets frozen in fear.
Yeah. And then he turns around and gets the hell out of there.
After the creature has left. You asked the question, why didn't the elder charge him? And I am answering your question, and then you're saying, no, it wouldn't happen that way because he would have ran. And it's like, well, okay, you made up something, and I'm just answering it with a realistic thing that's in the movie, which is he didn't turn and run when he saw the frickin' thing.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean he was going to be frozen forever.
You're right. He unfreezes when the creature leaves.
Yep.
I guarantee you Joaquin Phoenix in his head in that scene is thinking, don't show fear. You got to show your true intentions. So I'm not gonna run away. I'm not gonna scream. Be cool. Be confident. Guaranteed, with everything we've known about his character, that's what he was thinking. So if the creature started moving towards him, he was gonna stand there and probably say something like, "I'm a friend." And if you were that elder, what would you do? And that's all I was saying, which is
got him.
You can...
Yeah, all right. I do understand your point. I just feel like he would have backed up and gotten out of there. I don't think the elder's dressed up in the suit to just go walk around randomly in case somebody was looking into the woods for like 30 years. I think the only reason they dressed up in that suit was because Joaquin Phoenix was talking about wanting to go into the woods, and also about the fact that Noah had been to Resting Rock. So, they probably started dressing up as the creature during this time.
Right, like they probably did it initially because they had to make them.
Yep.
Right. I agree with that.
Yeah, cool. So they were out there looking for people who were breaking the rules and going into the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, actually, at the same time, though, he talks about how the elders take turns about like gathering the meat sacrifices,
Yeah.
right? So I guess maybe like once a week they would do a walk around,
That's
just
valid.
to like give noises for someone who may be nearby.
It's true. They did
But
give noises at the funeral dinner.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Which, it never actually says... I don't know why, but I thought that it was like, oh, they got speakers in the woods. But it never actually says.
I'm pretty sure William Hurt would have been like, no technology.
Right. But then also, at the end, when Noah's attacking Ivy, he's making a lot of like, rawr, rawr noises. And it's clearly amplified. And so you can make the argument, okay, maybe those noises are movie magic in the same way that music is movie magic.
Like Noah's making the noises, and to Ivy, it's terrifying.
Right,
it's like,
exactly. Yeah. Because then when he's dying, he does make noises where he's like... So it's like maybe it's... I don't know. But that actually, this is something I thought of. There was a great quote from one of the crew of Lord of the Rings, where in Helm's Deep and Two Towers, we'll talk about this again in our video, there's this really bright light, and it's nighttime, and someone said, well, where's that light coming from? And he responded with, the same place as the music. And it is such an amazing way to recontextualize stylized choices of lighting and sound and whatever. And so for this movie, that probably was it, where when Noah is making those crazy monster noises at the end, it's just enhanced for the story.
I believe one of the next scenes is that awesome scene we already spoke of. As soon as they realize that the creature is coming with the bell going off, everybody starts panicking, going to their houses, and we see Joaquin Phoenix going around and helping people, closing the door. He picks up that girl and gets her inside and closes people's doors, helps that lady with the window, and then he beelines for Ivy, right? So Ivy's standing there with her hand outstretched, no, he will come to make sure we are safe. He's probably inside safe somewhere himself. So there's the shot with her hand sticking out of the door, and then the creature is right there in the dark, and it stops. And it starts coming faster and faster, and then, boom, as soon as Joaquin Phoenix's hand comes in and grabs her, as the music changes. Multiple times later, during Judy Greer's wedding scene, when everybody starts freaking out because they're hearing the kids, screaming and they're shuffling, Ivy's walking through the crowd with her hand like this, and Joaquin comes out of nowhere and grabs it and holds it in the same manner. And then, at the end, when Joaquin is being stabbed, they're like, Noah Percy is covered in blood, and we don't know whose it is, everybody's checking out. She goes, and with her stick, she's counting her steps on the way to Joaquin Phoenix's house, and her hand is outstretched because she's just hoping and praying that he's going to come and grab her hand at any moment. But, so she gets to his place, and this is a detail I love when she gets there, and she drops her stick and goes up the stairs and then falls because she's expecting there to be a door, but the door is open. So she falls on that last step.
Well, that's interesting. I always thought she just fell because she's just frantically trying to get up the steps.
No, she had her hand out and there was no door, and that's where she falls right in. Because the door is left open.
The sound design of Ivy has some really cool moments. The wedding, the sound goes out and she hears the screams, and it takes a while for it to kick back in. And then when it does, it's that shot of the candle on the ground, or all the feet, and then the sound, it kind of goes out again when she's going to Joaquin Phoenix's place, and you hear 25, 24, and then there's that echoey Lucius, you answer me right now, and then the sound is out again. I thought that was cool. One thing that's interesting is the scene where Joaquin Phoenix is helping all the people in the town and the villages are attacking, what you just described. Mm-hmm. He shuts the door, turns around, sees a creature, and then moves to the side. So it's 2 times Joaquin Phoenix sees a creature off screen.
But then in that same shot, we see the creature come up to the door as he's standing right there.
Again, kind of going, I want to debate again, but the creature, when Ivy is holding out her hand, the creature's walking up, you can assume that they see Joaquin Phoenix coming. So the elder's probably all right, if I time this just right. But if Joaquin Phoenix wasn't there, what would the elder have done? Walk all the way.
Touched her hand.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe actually physically pushed her inside, but or then it would be
made some noises. Yeah, maybe it would have come and shouldered her in.
Right. But talk about frozen in fear. That would have been Ivy, because she was crying and she was like, no. As the creature's coming up, that elder's probably like, jeez, hurry up. Yeah, how much fun would it be, though, to be one of those elders? If you really thought about what you were doing, you're like, this is kind of messed up. That we're just terrifying all these people and I'm walking around in this. But at the same time, you'd feel like maybe you'd get in character a little bit. This is how I'm going to walk. And everyone just runs from you in fear. It's like Halloween real, It'd be a lot of fun.
It would be a lot of fun.
I wonder if the first time they did it, they felt so stupid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're like helping him put it on, and he's like, what?
This thing reeks.
Yeah, no one's gonna believe this.
The first time, I already spoke about this, that one of the animals gets skinned, we don't see it. We see the shot of the kids. William Hurt walks up, and then we see the shot of the animal. The second time is like one girl and another person, I think, just standing there staring down, and the camera goes like down, and then we see the animal on the ground. Maybe it's a separate shot.
No, it's one long.
It is the one where it just pans down.
Yeah, because then the music sounds like flies, but then also a violin. It's like...
That's right, yeah. And then it cuts to the next meeting with Sigourney Weaver up there talking to everybody. The third time is, after the wedding. So everybody's like, the kids come in and they're all scared. And so everybody starts to go home. And then there's the shot of like people walking and stopping. And people walking and stopping. And then you see all kinds of animals have been skinned. So they're hanging above the doorway, right?
Joaquin Phoenix's door is one hanging, and then others are just scattered on the ground.
That's right, yeah. Just the one hanging, yeah. And so all 3 times that animals have been skinned, we see the people's reactions well before we see what they're reacting to. And I love that.
Speaking of the animals being skinned, that's kind of the mystery for the elders as to who is doing this, because they know it's not them. And upon rewatch, there are a lot of fun little moments that you're like, oh, that's what they're talking about. For example, Sigourney Weaver and William Hurt, afterwards, after the wedding, they're standing together in the dark by the barn where the animals were taken and skinned. And she's like, the marks are way too high. This is not a coyote. Because they know someone is doing this. Mm-hmm. And so that's creepy. But before that, when the kids are in the wedding and they're like, we saw a creature. And he's like, this cannot be. Are you sure? It's because all the elders are there.
Yeah.
So if they saw a creature, what'd they see?
Yeah.
And then after that they go and all the animals are dead and it's like, something is happening.
Something is happening.
Knowing that it's all fake to the elders and then rewatching it, it's a creepy movie for them in a totally different way.
My favorite scene is where Ivy wakes up in the middle of the night, comes outside, and Lucius is sitting on the steps down there. Well, this is interesting. I made this connection last time I watched it. There's that empty chair sitting there. They're sitting down on the lower set of the steps, but then when it pans away from them kissing, there's an empty chair on there. And then at some point later, there's an empty... after Joaquin has been stabbed, I think, there's a shot of a hill with the forest behind it, and there's just an empty chair sitting in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, I wonder what it is, if there's something symbolism with an empty chair.
Well, when Ivy is sitting there in that same chair after Lucius is stabbed, her father comes up and says, I was sitting in that chair when I found out my daughter would never see again. So maybe the idea is if the chair is empty, things are good, but no.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's a territory of movies that I don't care about discussing. Yeah, it's a cool shot of a chair.
Yeah. It's a beautiful shot of a chair. That's all it needs to be. He's just sitting outside her house. He loves her. He's just making sure she's safe. That scene is gorgeous. I love fog. So when it's all foggy and everything and it's all beautiful and it's the dead quiet of night and he's sitting out there and she comes out and she's talking and it's like he wants to say something but he's a quiet person and she just keeps talking. Yeah. And so that's when he kind of goes off a little.
I've always been plagued by people telling me to speak.
It's like, why do you not say what is in your head? Why can you not stop saying what is in yours? And then he answers all her questions. And yes, I will dance with you on our wedding night. And then they go to kiss. And the camera pans away. The empty chair, all the fog. But his speech to her, it's just such a lovely scene.
Yeah. And it's shot behind them. And you only see, it's really close. They're really close. You only see the sides of their face.
Yeah.
Doesn't cut away to his angle, her angle. It's just this prolonged moment, literally right all up in their faces.
At some point, you can see a tear fall off of her chin, and then he puts his hand up to wipe her face.
Yeah, it's romantic when you make girls cry. What I thought was funny is you said fog in the dead of night. It could be 9:30 p.m. It's autumn, so the sun sets at 6. They all wake up at the crack of dawn. So maybe it's not the dead of night. Maybe it's more like
the dead quiet of night.
Just evening, late evening.
She was asleep. She woke up.
Yeah, but she could have gone to bed at 8.
So the whole world that they've set up because of all of them having lost family members by violence, terrible things happening, so they decide to go make a village somewhere with his billions of dollars so that they never have to worry about that kind of violence ever again. There's no money in this village. So crime. Crime is what they've been running from. And even though there's still like sickness, disease, you know, like little August or Daniel Nicholson, whoever, died because he got sick. And so you can't run from death. You can't run from sorrow, right? And that's kind of what they learned. But anyway, when William Hurt's standing there with his wife and she's like, you have made the oath. You cannot leave to go get medicines. Do you understand? Are you listening to me? Do you hear what I'm saying? You have made the oath. Because she's telling him that they should send their blind daughter. So it's kind of like her idea. And then when William Hurt goes to talk to all the elders about what he's done, and some of them are not for it, his impassioned speech to them about why this is right is so good. And he's such a good actor. Man, some of the way he delivers those lines is very powerful.
Yeah.
Very wonderful. And when he's like, it is a crime what has happened to Lucius. So the thing that we created this village for has found its way into this village. There's lines being crossed all over the place. But like keeping Lucius alive for hope, for love, like the world moves for love, is something he says.
Yeah, his motivations are obviously to save Lucius, for his daughter, but then also for Sigourney Weaver, because there's a little bit of a subplot where Sigourney Weaver has a crush on him and he has a crush on her, but they can't ever mention it, and that's the whole he doesn't touch you thing. So at the end, part of the decision to go save Lucius is to show Sigourney Weaver that he loves her, and he walks into her home and he's like, it is all that I can give you. So I'm saying to you that I love you, but this is it. I can't give you me, but I'll give you your son. Speaking of all the traumatic things, you get peppered little stories throughout.
Yes.
And one of them I always thought was funny was it's Ivy's sister's wedding, and they're all laughing, having a good time, and this lady next to her is like, you're just like my sister, or your sister, and then she's like, oh, how is she? And she's like, she died.
Dead.
Yeah, she's like, well, not only did she say she died, she's like, she died on her 23rd birthday. Men brought her into an alley and basically raped her. She's just telling this to her. It's like, why did you ruin her day?
Yeah.
You could have just...
Especially after she told her that when she goes up at the wedding to hug her sister, she hugs her quite a long time.
Yeah, it's just a weird, it almost feels TMI or unnecessary. Like, oh, you graduated high school? Congratulations. My brother graduated. Oh, what happened to him? Oh, he got his head cut off with a butter knife. Well, thanks for coming.
Because he graduated?
You know?
I want this.
Yeah, it's just like, it's a great line, and the way she delivers it is great, and the moment where Ivy hugs her sister afterwards is a good moment, but it just feels like, why would you say that?
Yeah. Well, I don't think that she was leading up to it. I think she was trying to tell a happy memory, and then when Ivy asked her, it was like...
You could have spared some details.
You could have spared some details.
You could have just said she passed before her 23rd birthday. And then if Ivy was like, how? You could be, I don't think that's appropriate for right now. I'll tell you later.
Well, maybe that is what happened. Because...
We watched the whole scene. It's one take. It cuts away to the wedding.
Yeah,
but
exactly. And then later, there's a voiceover of what happened to the sister. In that scene, she only says, my sister did not live beyond her 23rd birthday. That's all we know then.
No, she says men took her in an alley. She says that to
in that
Ivy.
same shot?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, valid point. She could have spared some details.
Yeah.
What did you think of that? When William Hurt is talking to Ivy about the fact that the monsters aren't real. Not when they're in the little shed, when they're like leaning against the back of it later, you know? Because we've seen some of her out in the woods already going to get medicine before it cuts back to this. He's talking to her about the reason that they started this place. And he's like, all of the elders who created this place have felt a loss so deep they have questioned the merit of living altogether. So like, all of them had been suicidal because of the loss and the violence that had occurred in their lives. And that's why at this support group meeting is when they decided to make this village with all his billions of dollars. When he says that to her, he's like, we've all been practically suicidal. He says, this is a darkness I had hoped you would never know. But it has found its way into the village. Human violence has been here because humans are here, because of Noah and his jealousy and his love. So yeah. I love the way he delivers that line, because he almost starts crying. It's so hard for him to get that out, because he's feeling very empathetic for his daughter, who is feeling the thing that he never wanted his children to have to feel, as the reason they made this whole village. And it's all for naught almost now, you know?
Something that we talk about that I think is funny is Noah stabs Joaquin Phoenix. There's that amazing sequence where he's like, bad color, on the porch.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah. And then when he gets locked in there and she slaps him and he screams. It's just great. But anyway, he dies.
Mm-hmm.
And in the village, they're like, Ivy's returned, but she killed one of the creatures in the woods. And they all know that it's Noah. And so then...
And Noah's mom just starts crying.
Right. And then Mr. Walker is like, your son has given us a reason to continue this place. He has made our stories true. Which is funny, because it's like, he is like, let Ivy go because crime has occurred. And even though Ivy most likely killed herself in self-defense, it's still like, well, your son's death is fine because he was a murderer and it's okay. This death can't happen. And so if I were
because
the parent,
of love.
Yeah, so if I were the parents of Noah, I'd be a little bit like, well, how do you know she didn't know it was Noah and murder him?
Yeah.
You know?
She got her revenge.
Yeah.
We should kill Ivy.
Yeah. That's how it starts.
That's how it starts. When she goes out there with the two guys, and then one of them, obviously, her brother-in-law, doesn't want to go with them.
Yeah.
And she's like, we have the magic rocks. And he's like, why have we not heard of these magic rocks before? Which is funny because she and / or her dad probably made that up like right before they were going to go out. Be like, we should give you something to make the others believe that they're going to be safe. Let's just put some rocks in a bag and say they're magic.
Yeah.
There we go. The magic rocks.
Yeah.
It's just so funny. But also it turns into a really serious moment when the other character leaves Ivy alone out there in the woods, and then she just dumps the rocks out. She knows that they're useless, and now she can be done pretending for somebody else. But she's out there alone now, and it's just a very sobering moment.
I love that character's line where he says, they will see that you are blind and they will take pity on you, but they will kill me, Ivy. And it's just a cool line when he says it.
How far out there have they come? They had to stop and set up that tarp for the rainstorm, and now they've still been moving. So it's like, he's got to go all the way back alone. And, it never shows it, but, I bet that guy is running. He's sprinting. He probably took half of his robe off and is carrying it so he can, run faster to get out of here. So we know it's fake. William Hurt has explained to her that it's not real. It's all farce. They made it up to keep people in the village because the towns are full of hate and violence, etc. So we know it's not real. We see the suit hanging in there, creaking on its little hook that it's hanging on. Ivy's out there in the woods alone, and we still feel a sense of unease. So after she finds the hole, I think it's when she's hearing noises out there.
She almost falls in the hole. Mm-hmm. As she's rising up, she realizes she has mud on her, and as she's wiping it away, you hear William Hurt say, there were rumors that creatures lived in these woods. Yeah. So it's the mud that triggers her first. And then she hears the a little bit soon after that. Yeah. And that's when she starts running wildly.
And so she doesn't know whether to believe that it's all fake or if there's actually a creature out there, etc. Because her whole life she's been brought up to believe these creatures are real. Now she's been told that they're not, but she's out there alone and blind and hearing things, and she's still terrified. So we are a little afraid on her behalf, especially once we see the creature.
We are aware that she is creeped out. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's creepy for the audience until it's like, oh, there might be a creature here. Yeah. Yeah. Because then it makes you question as the audience, where it's like, oh, they're all fake. Oh, maybe they're not.
Maybe they're not.
Yeah.
And then, and I know she's blind, so this is more for us, but there's that shot where she stops, and the shot from above her starts panning out, and she's surrounded by all those little red flowers or berries. and it's just like, boom, so much red around her. The bad color. And that shot, to me, for us, the audience, because we are afraid for Ivy about being out there alone with creatures that might still actually be real. And so I love that fear.
I wonder what the reasoning was behind they're attracted to the bad color. The movie never explains it.
I assumed it was blood, like no violence. What? Really? For real?
Yeah.
Red is just the color of, like, violence, you know?
But if they're attracted to red, wouldn't all the red berries that she stands in be gone? So, like, what if the creatures, in theory, if the creatures show up to where red is, what do they do?
I don't know.
Interesting.
Let's
not talk about it. What's cool about that scene is when then the creature does run after her, Noah, she's standing in front of that hole, and she has her arms spread out, which I didn't make the association until recently that she's playing the game that the boys play. Like, it shows...
Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, standing there, and he's all scared, and they're like, steal yourself! And then later, when on the porch, she's talking to Lucius, and she's like, you know, I've always wanted to do boy things. In that game the boys play, they say you hold the record and then I'll never be beaten. And then that is her playing that game in the woods.
With a real creature.
With a real creature.
So at the end, we already touched on this, with Noah being dead and all the elders standing around Joaquin Phoenix's bed, where most of them are sitting, or I think Sigourney Weaver's kneeling next to the bed, maybe. William Hurt is saying, we will bury Noah, say the creatures killed him. He has given our stories life. He has made our stories real, and he has given us the whatever to make this place continue, if that is something we still wish for. And then slowly everybody starts to stand up, and finally is Noah's dad and then Noah's mom finally stands up. So they're all standing, and then Ivy comes in. And I think that's wonderful that they're all like, yes, because of hope and love, what we've started with this village is going to continue, because for the most part it works. And now that they have, like, yeah, the creatures killed somebody once because they ventured out there. Oh.
Scenes like that in movies are always funny to me because of the idea of group peer pressure. You know, it's like 5 people stand up. It's like, what are you going to do? You know, the consequences of what might occur. Like, do you get to leave? Do they, like, how would they explain that? You know, so you just kind of...
The creatures killed Noah and his mom.
No, I do love the character of Noah, because, yeah, he's in on it the whole time.
Yeah.
But no one knows he's in on it, so he's keeping that a secret. Yeah. The village is full of secrets. And the scene where he stabs Joaquin Phoenix is such an incredible, like, he's at the door, and Joaquin Phoenix is like, what's the matter? Is someone hurt? And then he realizes, oh, he's upset about Ivy. So then Joaquin Phoenix is going to, like, talk to this guy and explain it, and he turns around, and they're, like, really close, right? And, like, what is it? And, yeah, you look down.
The knife pulls out.
The knife pulls out.
Blood.
And then Joaquin Phoenix falls over. Adrian Brody stands by the door, and he's, like, making a decision, and then he goes back, stabs him again.
Yo, as the camera zooms in and moves away from them toward, like, the wood burner.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what's incredible is, again, the idea of you're killing off your main character halfway through your movie. Like, Joaquin Phoenix is just not in it anymore. And then also, M. Night Shyamalan had said, and this could just be movie legend or whatever, but The Village was going to be rated R, but they took out one sound effect, and that made it PG-13. And I've always suspected that it was probably the knife being pulled out, that maybe they had a sound of, like... Yeah, and then Noah, at the end, I wonder if, when he attacks Ivy, I wonder if he's just playing with her, playing a game.
Yes.
Because he messes with her all the time. When he goes inside and he's hiding in the closet, and he claps every time they're around and laughs, so he probably thinks it's just a big joke, except for the fact that he skins the animals. That's a little malicious, maybe. But at the end, he, like, runs to grab her, and she moves, and he falls into the hole. And I wonder if he had grabbed her, if he would have picked her up and, like, laughed or something. You know, like, maybe it was kind of a mice and men situation where Lenny kills the girl just because he doesn't know his own strength and he likes her hair. Maybe Noah killed her, or wasn't going to kill her, but then he ends up dying, and so that shot of him, like, in pain in the hole, his dying thoughts could just be, I was playing a game, you know?
Yeah.
Because when he kills Joaquin Phoenix, he does for sure have regret. Like, he's sitting in the chair and he's like, bad color, and he just breaks down and is sobbing. And then after she slaps him and he's crying. It's probably more so because of her, but he knows that he did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it's just this great character, but also the crime that is committed is from a person who isn't necessarily evil.
Correct. I love when he's sitting in that chair and he's bad color, and then he's Mama. Very, very, very strong emotions in multiple scenes throughout this movie, and they're all acted so well.
You should watch the movie again because it's Halloween week. It's creepy, it's got fall, everything, you know, like...
You should also watch it closer to Valentine's Day because it's a love story.
But the point is that don't go into it thinking of it as this terrifying creature feature that's going to try and give you nightmares. Think of it as this drama about all of these people's personal tragedies and love and hope kind of intermingled with a creepy setting. And I think that kind of with that expectation going in, you can then watch the movie for what it actually is, which is brilliant and
beautiful,
perfect. And then also, yes, think of the twist as more of a reveal of secrets as opposed to gotcha.
Yeah, it's not
whoa. Right, it is supposed to be surprising and kind of mind-blowing a little bit, but it serves the story that is being told as opposed to turning the story on its head.
Correct. It is the reveal of what the world actually is.
In the end credits, it says the players for the cast. Mm-hmm. And so it's an interesting little note that, these actors in real life are in this movie called The Village, but they are acting as if people in the past. And that was kind of a criticism some people had, was that the dialogue didn't feel accurate to the time. But these are just people from the 80s who are just making up how they think people talked back then.
Yeah.
And so...
talking how they want to talk in what feels like a good, old, nostalgic past. Players in this world they've created for themselves. So the music was composed by James Newton Howard. The featured solo violinist is Hilary Hahn. And she has done a lot. She's incredible. So check out Hilary Hahn's classical music and her violinist stuff. It's phenomenal.
So if you rewatch it, let us know in the comments what you think.
I also want to know what your favorite moments are, etc. Just let us know what you love about this movie. Because, like I said, this is one of my favorites and has been for a long time.
So please like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, because we have new videos every Tuesday, every week. And next week we are doing Christopher Nolan's The Prestige. I'm Levi.
I'm Patrick.
And this has been Levi and Patrick Went to the Movies, M. Night Shyamalan's The Village.